Most Americans assume presidents can influence nearly every international event hosted in the United States, even those meant to remain outside the political sphere. But what happens when that expectation meets the reality of independent global organizations? Did you know that despite decades of White House involvement in high-profile gatherings, some global events are now largely protected from direct presidential control? Imagine a major sports tournament, with logistics already in motion across North America. The World Cup's flagship matches are booked for Seattle and San Francisco, two cities with long histories of federal-local tension. Meanwhile, an international body oversees the schedule, guided by contracts instead of political debate. This video breaks down exactly how FIFA enforced the rules during the run-up to the 2026 World Cup, what that meant for cities in Canada and Mexico, and why this shift calls old assumptions about international power into question. Across 10 focused points, you'll see how FIFA handled federal pressure, how contracts shifted the balance for Canadian cities, and what those changes reveal about the limits of American influence. Everything comes from official records, research forums, executive statements, and direct reporting. No hype or speculation, just reliable facts. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. Number 10. Presidential limits exposed. American presidents have traditionally shaped major events on home soil. The scale of the U.S. market has often put local leaders in a commanding position. In September 2025, Donald Trump stated from the Oval Office, "If I think it's not safe, we're going to move it." That phrase, "if I think," places all authority in the office of the president rather than any independent review. It overlooked the binding, international agreements that now govern global tournaments. Contracts with FIFA require Seattle and San Francisco to deliver on extensive obligations, from security to stadium upgrades, each valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. These are not easily changed even by national leaders. Maybe you've noticed this yourself. Has there been a time in your life when a global group openly set rules in the U.S., pushing back against presidential influence? Number 9. FIFA's asserted authority. The public learned the scope of FIFA's control at a 2025 sports business conference in London. Vice President Victor Montagliani of Canada stated plainly, "It's FIFA's tournament, FIFA's jurisdiction. FIFA makes these decisions." There was no suggestion of compromise. Attendees checking their phones for updates heard a straightforward declaration that the location and logistics would remain as planned, regardless of White House statements. For many Americans, this is a new experience, seeing executive power stop at the edge of a soccer pitch. The clear lesson: international sports now move according to robust legal commitments, not political demands from Washington. Number 8. Host city contracts. There's often an assumption that international matches are little more than political favors, movable at a president's discretion. In fact, FIFA's 2022 agreements form a strict web of obligations across each host city. Lumen Field and Levi Stadium are signed for 6 matches each in Seattle and near San Francisco. Vancouver's BC Place has 7. Toronto's stadium holds 6. Estadio Azteca in Mexico City will launch the tournament on June 11, 2026. Changes at this stage would cause substantial financial and legal complications. Each contract details everything from visa arrangements to local hiring and reaches into millions in city budgets. FIFA uses these deals to ensure no national leader, regardless of stature, has unchecked power to alter the plan. Number 7. Political influence blocked. In past decades, in post-war America, for example, presidential power often resolved public disputes or shifted global plans. Trump's comments about possibly moving matches reflected that older tradition: exert leverage or threaten consequences to achieve a preferred outcome. Both Seattle and San Francisco have histories of resisting federal enforcement, particularly on immigration. The World Cup was seen as one more tool in those debates. Yet, FIFA's public response marked a turning point. The organization continued as planned and did not allow event management to become an extension of U.S. domestic politics. Most Americans are not used to seeing this: an international group inside the U.S. acting completely by its own rules. Number 6. Canadian gains secured. In the past, Canadian officials rarely challenged U.S. demands publicly. This time, Canada benefited from having its representative at FIFA's highest level. Victor Montagliani provided more than just diplomatic reassurance. His statements offered a guarantee rooted in legal agreements. As a result, cities like Toronto and Vancouver kept their matches without risk of sudden cancellation due to American policy changes. For North America, this was a shift. Canadian host rights now rested on enforceable contracts, not on shifting political dialogue. It's a small detail, but it changes how Canadians understand their standing in major sporting events. Number 5. Real-world stakes. FIFA's allocation of matches brings measurable economic opportunity. Canadian host cities are set for an influx of visitors, with projected spending between $450 million and $500 million. Local businesses, hotels, and public infrastructure are expected to see real financial benefits. In Mexico, cities like Guadalajara and Monterrey have similar outlooks, each expecting hundreds of millions in direct impact. These numbers aren't abstract. They justify local investments in everything from transit to security. Knowing external interference is unlikely. In this way, contracts give cities a foundation for long-term gains, free from last-minute policy shifts. Number 4. Contradiction in action. One of the clearest ironies emerged when attempts to impose American priorities led to stronger protections for Canada and Mexico. The more aggressive the effort to change tournament plans, the more openly FIFA restated its own independence and legal authority. If the organization had not responded firmly, host city guarantees could have weakened. As it stands, the push for control prompted a public doubling down on rules that keep site assignments secure. Think about your own experience for a moment. Have you ever seen strong demands backfire and result in greater independence for the other side? Number 3. Institutional leverage. Middle power countries like Canada have long relied on international organizations for influence beyond their market size. Rather than confront a larger neighbor directly, they use multilateral rules and leadership roles to safeguard their interests. In this case, Canada's role within FIFA ensured that the group, not outside politics, shaped World Cup decisions. Instead of backstage negotiations, the defense of host rights happened in full view, showing a clear shift toward transparency and process. This approach is now common in global events, with institutions maintaining authority by placing their representatives in key spots. Number 2. Limits of U.S. market. A key reason FIFA could resist presidential demands ties to the tournament's global audience. With 48 qualifying teams and expected viewers in the billions, the World Cup isn't dependent on the American market alone. FIFA owns the rights, the schedule, and the selection of cities. By contract, these elements are protected from unilateral changes. In contrast, many other international partnerships, military alliances, or trade deals may still hinge on Washington's approval. Canadian and Mexican cities benefit directly from this separation, gaining more room to plan and invest in their own priorities. Number 1. Shifting power lines. The events of the 2026 World Cup make clear that global organizations set boundaries for national leaders, not the other way around. Matches in Toronto and Vancouver will proceed under FIFA's binding agreements, not through last-minute sign-off from the White House. Canadian and Mexican hosts now operate with the knowledge that international deals can secure their participation in events of this scale. The contradiction is plain. American authority remains strong, but events like these show exactly where those limits appear. By now, you might be comparing it to your own life. When did you last see a major decision happen without a green light from Washington? And how did you respond? At the edge of the pitch in Vancouver, with local organizers making final preparations, the scene reflects a new reality in international cooperation, grounded in contracts, not presidential decisions. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.